just passed a little film of George Whitfield. Has anyone heard of George Whitfield before? Okay, what do you know about George Whitfield? Anything that...
He used to give sermons for hours and hours and hours and hours.
Exactly. So what you see is, as you mentioned, kind of the movement of the Age of Enlightenment and the Great Awakening kind of come to America, starting out really in England and then coming over. So George Whitfield was one of those preachers that you wouldn't maybe consider at the time, you know, classically. I mean, he was classically trained, but a lot of the ministers or preachers who were in the area didn't necessarily agree with the way they preached. So he's a really interesting figure. He kind of started out and really in New England. So we have an example of his field pulpit, what he would do. And you're right, he would actually, instead of just being in the churches, he would go out to fields and preach. And he was known as a new light instead of an old light, just because he had a completely new style of the way you would typically do, especially in a church. So he's really interesting, and the film's really interesting as well. So if you have time to come back and watch that, you can kind of get a little snippet of maybe a sermon that he might have given. So you can see that, you know, early on that because of this, eventually when you get to this time at the end of the 18th century, when you start to getting into the really the start of the revolution, not quite there yet, but you see how the Bible has influenced basically life in America at this time. So you start out with them bringing Bibles over, the Geneva Bible over on the Mayflower, and you know, they're trying to spread it around. And it's really interesting because, you know, they're using that also, like George Whitfield, to give ideas. And then we get to basically the Revolutionary period where the Founding Fathers are kind of coming up with ideas and using references to the Bible. And so right here we have a Liberty Bell. The real Liberty Bell is in Independence Hall in Philadelphia. But what's really interesting is that this bell is actually made from the exact mold in the same foundry in France that the original Liberty Bell was made. So it's an actual mold of the Liberty Bell, which is really interesting. And it has the verse from Leviticus 25, and you can see it. It's got one part on here, but it's just an interesting object that they have. And then over here, right behind you on this case, we have a Declaration of Independence in a little pamphlet form. It's really kind of astounding because apart from the Bible being sold at this time, Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin was the second most sold book at the time. So you can see like really how much of an impact it had at that point. And you have the character of Tom, who you know, he's bound in slavery, but he has his Christian principles and his morals that are kind of his compass that guide him through his trials and tribulations that he has in the story. And so it's really interesting to see, you know, how there's references that are pulled out from the Bible and used in books such as Harry Beecher Stowe's. So it's really interesting kind of what artifacts that we have. And what we have in 1970s is we have, this is called a microfiche, and there's actually 50 of them taken up on the Apollo 14 into space. There was one that's actually implanted on the surface of the moon, and it has the King James Version of the Bible on the microfiche. So there's not, I think many of them haven't survived, so this is one of only 12 that are still intact. But it's just kind of interesting that they're now like the idea of the Bible spreading and now being implanted onto like the surface of the moon for celestials.